Hey, folks, welcome into the It's Official podcast. He's Jeff Siegel. I'm Jeremy Plonk from First Bet and Express Bet. A special welcome to those of you on the First Kentucky Derby Wager Guide site. Hope you're enjoying all the information from the handicappers around the First family as you prepare for Kentucky Derby 150. It's Tuesday of Derby week as we record our podcast live. News today that Encino has scratched out of Kentucky Derby 150. That means we're going to get an also eligible number 21 Epic Ride into the field. Jeff Siegel and I take care of 5 topics in racing each and every week, and we've got 5 handicapping topics for you this week, Kentucky Derby 150 style. You ready to do this, Jeff?
Boy, I am so ready. Spent all day yesterday handicapping at the full card for Churchill. It really was an all-day affair for me with his 14 races. Wrote up the analysis, the wagering strategies. It'll be posted on Express Bet on Thursday. Oaks will have Wednesday, but I am about as prepared as I'm ever going to be. I could get blown out of the water, but at least I've done the work. That's all I can say.
Let's get to our first of 5 topics here on It's Official. Let's talk about the draw. They drew the race on Saturday night at Churchill Downs in a special ceremony, and a field of 22 entered. We're down to 21. Again, the scratch of Encino today. The 9 is out. That means the 21 Epic Ride is in. If Mugatu, the 22, is to draw into the race, it'll have to happen by Friday at 9 a.m., which is scratch time on Oaks Day. So let's cross our fingers, no further defections from this point forward. Fierceness, the Kentucky Derby favorite, drew that ominous 17 post, but he'll leave from post 16 at least now. So the fact that no horses ever won the Kentucky Derby from post 17, just a statistical anomaly. But nonetheless, Fierceness won't be hung with that around his neck like a noose, Jeff.
Yeah, I'm sure that they're quietly celebrating. I mean, everybody has a little bit of superstition in them, especially in this game. So if you don't worry about the 17, or if you did, you don't have to worry about it now. Now, my stronghold, my long shot, is in the 17, but I'm not asking him to win. Just please hit the board. That's all I'm asking. So I'm good with that. I don't know how the connections feel about the outside draw, but I like it for Fierceness. I think 16 holes will be fine because he has enough early speed to get in good position, and the main thing is for him to be able to move when he wants to move, and when you're outside, you generally have that option.
Absolutely. The horses to the inside, it's not as dangerous as it used to be down on the rail where the starting gate was so close to the inside rail that the horses almost had to break to the right a little bit to avoid that. That's not the case in the last several years with the new 20-horse starting gate. So there's not that gap between the 14 and the 15. The danger zone used to be 1 and 14. Those 2 posts you just threw out automatically. But it's still very hard to win from the inside in the Kentucky Derby. Nobody's won from the 1, 2, or 3 since real quiet, the 3-hole in 1998. The 2 where Sierra Leone leaves from hasn't been won since Affirmed in 1978, the great Triple Crown winner. And of course, Ferdinand from the rail in 1986, the last win from the fence. It's not easy down there, Jeff. If you're a deep closer, how shuffled back do we think Sierra Leone's going to become with this draw? He's in post 2. I had him projected as maybe the 3rd or 4th horse from the back of the pack in my original pace scenario. We'll talk about that in just a little bit. But I'm wondering now with the kickback and everybody like a magnet comes from the outside, tries to get inside over that 5/16 of a mile run to the clubhouse turn. It could get a little shuffling and pushed back for Sierra Leone down there in the 2-hole. I don't like the draw.
I don't either for him,
right?
Because he doesn't really have he doesn't have any gate speed. So no matter where he is, it's one thing to be last of 8. It's another thing to be last of 20 early on, and not only is he going to take a lot of dirt, but he's going to be locked down in there where he really can't maneuver. You remember his last race, how impressive that was in the Bluegrass, where he somehow managed to angle widest of all into the stretch. Well, he had the outside draw that day, so he didn't have to do a whole lot of work to get where he wanted to be early on. But now he is going to either have to drop back to last and then circle the pack, or be used early to try to maintain position. He doesn't want to be used early. So I'm not saying he can't win. I'm not throwing him out. I respect him too much. But, man, I think he's the biggest loser in the draw, quite frankly, because he doesn't need this obstacle in front of him. He's going to have a lot of ground that he's going to have to make up, and he may not be able to get loose until the top of the stretch, and that might be too late.
I agree with you. He's not a toss because of this post, but his job got harder. I think we can both agree on that. It got more difficult from the two. Dornoch, we joked about this a little bit tongue in cheek, but we wanted to see him go up to the lead and get back to the running style that served him so well in his previous races before the Bluegrass, where they tried to teach him the rate. And I said, if there's one horse that I'd like to see on the inside, it's Dornoch, so that they don't have to think about it. Just go. And this might be the best case scenario for Dornoch in this particular event of drawing the rail. Of all the horses that have drawn the rail, and I've picked a lot of them to win. Arch, he almost got thrown over the fence. Looking at Lucky, almost got thrown over the fence. Mo Donegal, Known Agenda. There's at least 4 horses in the last 15 years or so that I've picked from the rail in the Kentucky Derby being stubborn. I don't think Dornoch is going to overcome it, but it's a good spot for him. Let's see how far he can take him, right?
Absolutely. I mean, it kind of reminds me of Arrogate and the Travers, where he drew the 2-hole, I think it was, and forced Bob Baffert's hand. And he said, just let him roll out of there, which was not the plan. And all he did was break the track record and win by a pole. So now Dornoch's hand is going to be pressured here. And I think that you see Dornoch from the rail, it doesn't give them any crazy, stupid ideas of rating. Put him on the front end and just maybe get loose on the lead. It's happened before. I don't think it's going to happen here, but at least Dornoch will be allowed to produce his best style of running. And I think, he'll take them as far as he can if he leads cleanly. That's the main thing.
Let me get my quarter horse hat on. For all the years that I charted races and handicapped the quarter horses at Remington Park in Oklahoma City, bad neighborhoods, I call them in quarter horse handicapping, is when you're around other horses who have trouble getting out of the starting gate, right? You don't want to be in a bad neighborhood in a quarter horse race where some horse breaks left or right, you're bobbled back, and the race is over. In the Kentucky Derby, the race can be over for a speed horse who gets shuffled back. Think Dermasotogaki last year when we thought he would be right up there. It seems like the European horses, when they come to the U.S., have a hard time. International horses have a hard time with our American starting gates. They're a little tighter. They don't get out of the gate, it seems like. They walk out of there. The 2 Japanese horses, Jeff, are drawn right next to each other, and I'm calling that a bad neighborhood. The odds of both T.O. Password and Forever Young breaking cleanly in an American race, that's kind of exacerbated a little bit. And when you look to the outside, you've got Track Phantom, a potential speed horse, and to the inside, now with Encino Scratch, it's Just a Touch, another potential speed horse. There's 4 horses there all in a row in a bad neighborhood that could have an impact on the pace. If somehow we look on the backstretch of this race and say, what the heck happened to all the speed we thought was in this race? Maybe you'll go back to that 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 kind of area, that bad neighborhood, and watch the replay, and that's where there's potential trouble. You can never handicap trouble, and you can never anticipate it for sure, but as a quarter horse handicapper, you're looking for it. That's one of the ways that you're trying to handicap the race. And of course, this is a mile and a quarter, not a quarter mile, but for some of these horses, the break is what it's all about, and if they're not part of the pace early, they're going to be in deep trouble. So I think the break is very, very important. And people talk about it with Fierceness, right? There's a lot of talk. Well, Fierceness has to get away from the gate. He didn't get away cleanly in the Holy Bull, and look what happened. So the break is very important. And the 2 Japanese horses right next to each other, to me, that's a little bit of danger there in the middle of the gate.
Maybe, but you're right about trying to anticipate trouble. And what I do when I try to project the pace is to try to find out and look at these horses and watch their breaks and see how good they are and how consistent they are leaving from the gate. So if Dornoch goes and Track Phantom goes, and with blinkers on, you'd have to think that they're going to be sent. The good news about the draw is that Endlessly is outside both. So he can, that is, I'm talking about Johnny V, he can look over to his left and say, okay, those guys are hell-bent on getting to the front, so I'm not going to have to do that. But if you're down inside, there's not much you can do. You've got to go. Otherwise, you get crossed over on and start taking dirt. So I love that draw for Fierceness. And he's not a need the lead type. I don't think anybody – I mean, you look at him in the afternoon, you say, well, he wants to be in front. But you watch him breeze in the morning, Jeremy, and he looks like as a push button of horses you can possibly have. I don't think he's going to get speed crazy. He certainly has to come out of the gate cleanly, but that's true no matter where you leave. If you get pushed back, unless you're Seattle Slew or something, you're going to pay the price. And so I think that from the trying to project the posts and how they'll figure it out in terms of where they'll be early on, I think Fierceness is just where he wants to be.
Let's look at the pace next. It's our second topic here this week on It's Official. The pace of the race. Look, we've had 2 meltdown derbies and long shots win the last 2 years. Prior to that, we had 4 or 5 derbies in a row where it was first over quality horses, where Fierceness kind of wants to be in this particular race. So it's been won many ways over the years in the Kentucky Derby, but there are 2 main formulas of the pace. It's a meltdown with a big bomb usually, or it's a front-running type who's in the top 3, turning down the backstretch, who's a well-bet, well-backed horse. You don't see cheap long shots in the front win the Derby, and a lot of times the good closers don't win the Derby. It's the closers like Rich Strike and Mage and horses where you scratch your head and you look up at the tote board and you're looking at big balloons. Let's take a look at how I see the pace here and see if you agree with me. Here's my pace projection for Kentucky Derby 150. This is based on art, not science. There's no numbers, no digits. I don't look at speed figures. I don't look at pace figures. This is where these horses have been most comfortable, with a edge towards maybe some equipment changes and post positions and what we project will happen in this particular race. I think Dornoch goes to the lead in here from the rail. I wasn't so sure he would be the horse who made the front in this race, Jeff, until they drew the rail. Now he's got to go out of there. Luis Saez will hustle. Danny Garkin said as much. They're going to have to breathe fire to beat us now. They're going to go from the inside. Encino's scratch today is a big deal because I thought Encino under Axel Concepcion was going to be part of the pace like Brad Cox did last year with one of his 3 runners. He sent one of them right to the front. I thought Encino was going to push the pace. Fierceness will be right up on the front. T.O. Password from Japan, Jeff. I wasn't sure if this horse, who went wire to wire essentially in the 2 starts in Japan, would have American speed. But a workout in 46 and change over the track here at Churchill, that's fast. And so this horse is probably fast enough on American dirt if they want to be up in the pace and they break clean. T.O. Password can be part of the front. And Trek Phantom with blinkers on. I don't think he's as fast as some of these other horses, but with blinkers on, might he be a part of the early pace? I think this is a balanced pace scenario across. 4 horses, I think, want to be up near the front. Then you've got, 6 in the pressing group in there with Epic Ride, maybe another one thrown up into that mix. But then you got the mid-pack and the closers mixed in there. It's pretty even up and down the line here. I don't think it's going to overcook in this race, but I do think it's faster than I thought it would have been a week ago.
I agree. I think that if you're watching the race and the half-mile split is 47 seconds or slower, then I think that's a soft or moderate pace. But if it's faster than that, if they're in the 46 and change, certainly 45, that goes without saying, right, then it's a fast pace. And in looking at your chart there, which I agree with, I think Dornoch's going to go. I don't know how fast Track Phantom is going to be with the blinkers on, and I'm not really I'm kind of flying blind with T.O. Password because I haven't been able to see his races from the start, so I don't know how much how aggressive he is leaving the gate. But I do know that Fierceness. I'm pretty sure that Johnny V is going to let him run out of there the first eighth of a mile and then improvise. And in watching him work, Fierceness, he's the kind of horse who can slow down and come back to you. But he's not going to be intimidated by other horses on the pace. So I think the pace is going to be it's hard for me to believe, and I've been wrong before on this, that the pace is going to be blatantly fast and overwhelmingly fast. I think there's a chance that it might be slower than fast, but anything in the mid-range, the 47 seconds or somewhere in that area, give or take a tick, I think that's going to work well for Fierceness.
Last 20 years, 9 derbies have been won either on the front end or a first over kind of trip. So you're looking towards that front pack. Then there's also been 6 of them won as complete meltdowns. So 7 actually on the meltdown department. You always get the controversy whether or not you want to count Maximum Security or Country House, such divergent styles. To me, I look at Country House winning the race wire to wire when I put it in that statistical category. So those are the 2 ways to win it. That's 16 of the last 20 derbies, either won right up on the punch or from well back. So like the horses who are kind of in the press and middle group have got their work cut out for them getting the win end. This race is generally won by by a horse 1, 2, 3 down the backstretch, or 16, 17, 18, 19 kind of situation. We'll see how it plays out in terms of the pace. One of the interesting things about the pace of this race is Fierceness, right? I mean, he's obviously the center point in your handicapping. Do you try to beat the favorite? If you're punching holes in Fierceness, a lot of folks have made the case that if he doesn't get what he wants, he's going to throw in the towel, that he's just kind of a good time Charlie, a fair weather friend, however you want to put it. But, Jeff, I think people forgot that the Breeders' Cup Juvenile actually happened. That was a race, and it was Fierceness's big coming out party as a 2-year-old, and it was not handed to him on a platter. We're going to take people back here as we discuss the pace of the Breeders' Cup Juvenile last year, and now compared to the Kentucky Derby, what they're going to run into Saturday. This is on the far turn. He's in between in the orange and blue Rapoli Silks to the front. He's surrounded by Chad Brown, Bob Baffert, and Brad Cox horses. Those 5 challengers who have him in the box right now are all grade 1 winners or grade 1 runner-ups. This was a fantastic group. What happens when the leader tries to kick clear general partner? He runs with them. They put distance on the rest of them. And in a couple jumps, he puts away the speed horse general partner. And here comes Muth to the outside. Bob Baffert's local. Of course, he was running over his home track that day. He's the favorite for the Preakness in a couple weeks. And Fierceness just sloughed him off. So what happens if a good horse looks him in the eye, Jeff? Maybe this.
Well, I can tell you that this was as impressive a race as you can possibly imagine if you look back and realize who was behind him and how he accomplished the win. Everybody looks at the Florida Derby, and he won that race by 13 lengths, and he earned a 110 Beyer number. And that was not a one-off. In fact, the Breeders' Cup Juvenile, to me, was more impressive, if you can possibly imagine that. Yeah. Because it was like a tag team here. He put away general partner, who was a very, very fast horse and a good horse. And once he put him away, it wasn't like he was able to coast for like 50 yards or a 16th of a mile. He was immediately attacked by Muth, who was coming off a grade 1 win over that track and distance, and has proven this year to be just as good now as he was then. And Muth had dead aim, every chance, and all Fierceness did was shrug him off like water off his back, and was as strong as you could possibly be, while earning a very, very strong triple-digit 105 Beyer number. So it was a legitimate race. So either one of those 2 races is good enough to win this race and win it easily. And the thing I liked about Fierceness is that after taking all that heat, but not running off and getting loose in the lead, putting away a fast horse and then shrugging off another good horse, tells me that when field hits the top of the stretch, he's not going to back up. He's going to keep on. He's going to stay on. He's going to re-break. That's what I'm expecting to see, based on his ability to deal with other heat. And I'm not sure that he's really going to have to do anything more than what he's already done, not once but twice, to win the Derby.
I said earlier, I'm not big on pace figures when it comes to how a race may shake out, because I think jockey intent and instructions and things like that play a bigger role in it than raw numbers and races over various racetracks. But late pace figures is something I'm very much into as a handicapper, and Briss has a good set of them, because at the end of a race, you either got something left or you don't. Everybody's trying what they got unless they're wrapped up and completely out of the race. So Fierceness in the Breeders' Cup Juvenile got a 109 Briss late pace figure, and that was fantastic. And in the Florida Derby, he only put up 113. He's the fastest horse in the race late. If he's first or second in terms of this pace, and he's 10 points faster than everybody else late, he has to not show up. It's not about the pace. I don't think it's about the pace like, oh, they're going to wear him down, that kind of deal like that. I don't think he has to be first or second. He has to misfire, I think, in order for it to be a big deal. So if you're handicapping against Fierceness, 1, good luck, and 2, I think you better have a better idea of what's going to get him beat other than the pace setup. I don't think it's going to be that. I've been wrong before in the Kentucky Derby, and we'll talk about our picks in just a bit. But as far as the pace goes in this year's Derby, that's the way we see it setting up. We think Dornoch's going to go out. We think Fierceness is going to be very close to him, and we'll see what happens where the closers have to make their way through the pack. Let's talk some long shots now in Kentucky Derby 150. And if you're going to bet the long shots, you want a little insurance. Well, we've got it for you at First Bet and Express Bet, because up to a $10 money back special if your top place finished second or third in key stakes races, both Friday and Saturday, Oaks and Derby days at Churchill Downs. I believe it's the 5 races leading up to the Oaks and the 5 races leading up to Kentucky Derby. So those are the promo races, up to a $10 money back special. That means if your win bet finishes second or third, you get that money back into your account. So that gives you a little bit of insurance to try a long shot play. Jeff and I are both going to give you our key long shots for the Kentucky Derby. Jeff, who do you want to start out with?
Well, I'm going to use Stronghold, and I'm not telling you that he's going to win. I'm not asking him to win because I don't think he can beat Fierceness, and it doesn't take a 50-year handicapping expert or whatever I'm called to say that. I mean, you look at the form and you can say, how the heck is Stronghold going to beat Fierceness? And I'm not expecting him to, but I think he can run it in the money, second, third, or fourth, or whatever it is. This was his Derby at Santa Anita, and I love the way he rallied between horses. Came through a small opening. You can see him. He's going to be 3 off the rail. That's a tough place to try to rally. He got kind of squeezed there towards the end.
Mm-hmm.
Now, after he finally gets through, he has to face a fresh Baffert horse, and he's life and death to get by him, but he reaches back for that reserve energy in the final 16th of a mile. And I think the fact that he was able to win this race shows me that he's got that inner strength that you need to have under pressure in a race like the Derby at 1.25 miles, and he was able to do it. Now, you look at the 89 buyer number. Now, here's where I'm going to differ with a lot of handicappers, because I'm convinced that the 89 buyer number did not do him justice. I do my own numbers, and I got a much better number in that race than the buyer boys did. And I don't, again, his number, I mean, I think he's 4 or 5 points short of where he should be. I was interested to see, because sometimes when you want to verify a speed figure, you have to look at sometimes the next race to find out whether you were right or wrong. Well, there was a horse in that race who finished 4th, got beat more than 9 lengths in that race. Curlin's Chaos is his name. He went back into an allowance race over the weekend. It was a Cowbird race, but it was a good race. And he won for fun. Now, it was on the grass, so it's still hard to compare apples and oranges. But he verified the strength of the race he was coming out by coming back to win easily. He's going to win, I believe, a $200,000 Cowbird race at Santa Anita in about 3 weeks. So that's the one piece of evidence that would maybe make me believe that maybe I am right about that number, because his number was obviously getting beaten 9 lengths was not good. And yet he came back over the weekend and ran way, way better according to the numbers. So I'm hopeful that Stronghold can be in the second flight. He's not going to be in the first flight, but in the second flight, maybe ready to pick up some of the horses that Fierceness disposes of, if I'm right about Fierceness. And then he's first over, as they say in harness racing. And then I would say that he has a chance, a good chance, to stay on and get a piece of the purse. He's 20-1. So if he can do that, I'm thrilled.
Jeff's on the 18. I'm going to take you one farther out for my long shot play. It's Resilience. Folks who have followed this show and Countdown to the Crown this season know I've been high on Resilience for a long time. So there's pretty much a given I was going this direction. 20-1 in the morning line. The 19 Resilience coming off the win last time out in the Wood Memorial. This horse was beaten only 3.5 lengths by Sierra Leone when having to do all the dirty work up near the pace against Track Phantom in the Risen Star, which is the key prep race this year on the Triple Crown Trail at 1 mile and 3/16 down at Fairgrounds. He came back, won this race at Aqueduct, looked good doing so. I love the pedigree. I'd absolutely love the pedigree when you've got a horse who's by into mischief, who's already sired 2 Derby winners. You got Brilliance on top, and on the dam side of this pedigree, the mare Meadow Sweet. Oh, this is a great female family. Second dam is Tranquility Lake, class personified. The dam is a half-sister to Courageous Cat, the aftermarket millionaire grade 1 turf milers. I love dam side pedigree that is full of turf for the Kentucky Derby, and Brilliance on top. You get Bill Mott. Junior Alvarado takes them out because John Velasquez was previously obviously committed to one and only Fierceness in here. But Jeff, there's no auxiliary gate anymore in the Kentucky Derby. Remember, there used to be 14 and then 6 additional stalls. But you and I would have really had our eyes trained on the old auxiliary gate, because you're like in the 18, I'm like in the 19, and Fierceness is coming out of the 17. So our long shot plays here. Jeff's got the 18 for him. Stronghold stronghold. I'll take the 19 Resilience for my long shot play. Any thoughts there?
Yeah, I mean, do they not have the same running style, second flight, you think?
Yeah.
And if the pace situation is such where Dornoch goes and maybe T.O. Password and Track Phantom, and then Fierceness is outside of them, who's first over? If we're right about both of our horses, who are going to be in a position to make a run and then maybe loom a threat, if nothing else, and hopefully one or both can stay on. And I think they both showed that they could do that in their most recent wins. You know, you could do worse than take the Wood Memorial winner and the Santa Anita Derby winner at 20-1 and try to get him in the frame there, you know, and that's what we're trying to do. So again, trying to make a wager on Fierceness, but then try to multiply the payoff by finding the second or third horses in your exacta try or super.
Yep.
That's maybe the way to go if you're really serious about making this year's Kentucky Derby a chance for a major score.
Exactly. We said horses from that press and middle category rarely win the Kentucky Derby. I'll have another's about the only in the last 20 years to kind of fit in that group. Super Saver was a little more forward, but again, you're talking like 2 horses out of 20 years. You're either a closer or you're up into the pace, and that seems to be the way to go. So our long shot plays are good underneath plays with the right running style to get there before the closers, but not be torn up in any kind of pace up front. So they could be good underneath type horses, 20-1 plus on each of those runners for our Derby long shots. That's topic 3 on the board, but we've got more for you. There's always 5 topics. We go to the 4th next. You've got the long shots that we like. Let's talk about some horses, Jeff, that we don't like. These are, we're calling the tosses, as in toss them out, scratch them off your program, put a big X through them in your racing form, whatever. Use your finger on your iPad in common, modern day handicapping, whatever you do to get rid of a horse out of your thought process. Who are we tossing in Kentucky Derby 150?
Well, first of all, let's start off at the top with the speed horses other than Fierceness, because if Fierceness doesn't put them away, I'm just wrong anyway, right? So Fierceness is going to go after Dornoch. He's going to go after T.O. Password, Track Phantom, who couldn't win Louisiana Derby with a, hand an easy trip to me type of trip. I don't see them sticking around. So Fierceness puts them away. So the 3 other speed horses, they're off my ticket. Now, I'm looking at the and this is where I may be wrong. I'll be the first, the one to say that it's possible, but I'm not crazy about the horses coming out of the Louisiana Derby. I know there are a lot of sentiment for Catching Freedom because he won it from way, way back. Right. I just thought that race kind of fell apart. Anna Marie, I've heard people liking him as a long shot. Here, look at this race. You can see Catching Freedom. He's going to be on the far outside. And rallying just inside of him is Anna Marie. And Anna Marie's going right with him here. And Anna Marie has every chance. And he didn't have a straw in his path before this. No. Nobody's really running here. They're all in a heap. You know what I'm saying?
Up and down. Look at the legs. Everything's up and down.
It's like a stagger fest. Eventually, Catching Freedom's going to get the best of Anna Marie. Anna Marie is spent at the wire. There's no gallop out from him. So, I don't know. When you see 8 horses in the picture at the wire, you kind of figure that maybe it was not a great race. So the Louisiana Derby, anybody coming out of the Louisiana Derby, they're still in a heap. I don't like. So I'm going to throw out Catching Freedom. I'm going to throw out Anna Marie. And then again, those are horses that are known to have their backers in this field. And those are the horses. If I can lose those, if I can get rid of that group, the speed and the Louisiana Derby horses, then I have a chance for my long shots and your long shot to be where they want to be and be where we need them to be at the wire.
The Fairgrounds Trail has been beaten down very well in recent years towards the Kentucky Derby, but it's the Risen Star, the February prep, that's had the most success at a mile and 3/16 or a mile and an eighth. Then the mile and 3/16 Louisiana Derby hasn't had quite the success with its alumni moving forward. And I would say this year, to make your point even more valid, the race in the Risen Star was much tougher than the Louisiana Derby. It was one of those years where the third leg of the series was tougher than the fourth because Sierra Leone won that race and Resilience ran fourth. they both got out of town and both went and won major preps in the East and in Kentucky. So I thought it was an easier group in the Louisiana Derby than what they faced in the Risen Star. The visuals that you tell me, and everybody in Kentucky can't stop talking about Honor Marie. This is our good buddy, Bob Newmeyer. Love you, buddy. Rest in peace up there. He called these horses the she horses. It's the everybody's whispering about these horses, and he called them the she horses. Absolutely, the she horse in this year's Kentucky Derby, Numi would tell you, is Honor Marie. Everybody's talking about how this is the live one. Jeff's telling you otherwise, and I love that going against the grain, because the she horses never fire. I mean, we can go back to how many of them there have been over the years. Daddy Knows Best. Remember that one for Steve Asper?
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
The Delassie horse who ended up running the Travers horse. Everybody thought he couldn't lose. All the talk. 10 Most Wanted was the name. 10 Most Wanted. Yeah. Daddy Knows Best. I mean, the snowball gets going, and once it gets going in horse racing, it gets bigger and bigger and bigger. And next thing you know, these horses are on the tote board at like 10, 11 to 1, and you're wondering how. Honor Marie is that horse, I think, getting a lot of the talk. Okay, yeah. Which horse am I tossing in this year? Oh, go ahead, Jeff.
I was just going to ask you. Tell me your toss. And then I want to ask you about a horse after that I'm on the fence with, okay?
All right. I've got a toss, and we talked a little bit about that danger zone, the bad neighborhood. I'm saying Sirenora to the Japanese horse, Forever Young. I don't think he's trained with any kind of particular fervor since he's been at Churchill Downs. I was looking for this horse to come to the U.S. and wow me, because on his form, we really don't know what he's been beating overseas, in Japan, in Dubai, in Saudi Arabia. This is his win in the UAE Derby. He didn't win that race as impressively as Dermasotogake did a year ago, and Dermasotogake bumped at the start, could do no better than 6th. He breaks next to the other Japanese horse in the race. Like I said, this could be a bad neighborhood. I don't know what to make of Forever Young. I know they're wearing that mask on him because they don't like kickback. He's in the middle of the starting gate, like 10 of 20 in here now. He's going to take dirt. I don't know if he's going to like it or not. And I think he's going to be at worst the 4th betting choice in the race. I've got to say no can do to this one. So I'm throwing out a horse who I've had ranked in my top 4 or 5 for the last month or two in terms of contenders. But when he got to the U.S. and he got to Churchill Downs, I wanted to be wowed, Jeff, and I haven't been wowed yet. So at a shorter price, I'm going to go ahead and take a stand against him. And also T.O. Password, who will be part of the pace, but I can't imagine on just 2 starts that one runs any farther. If you watch T.O. Password's last race from Japan, the whole crowd was coming at him at the wire. He won the race, but 2 gallops after the wire, he was 8th. I mean, it was a race where the cavalry was coming. So I think he'll get run over at some point. But I'm going to throw the 2 Japanese horses out of the Derby.
All right. Well, as far as Forever Young is concerned, everything you say is logical. Okay. But it's hard for me to get past 5 for 5. And he may be the kind of horse that shows up on game day and, will run his race regardless of what he looks like. I don't know. It's because there's an unknown. I feel I have a pretty good handle on the others. So if I'm throwing out some horses, I think I know what they can do, but I really don't know with what Forever Young can do. I just know I was so impressed when he ran down Bookham Dano. I said, no, that's a racehorse, because Bookham Dano's a good horse. That was 2 races back in Saudi Arabia. So I'm not going to throw him out, because if he runs 8th or 14th, whatever, I'll live with it. But I would be very angry at myself if I got everything out right and threw him out, and then he shows up and hits the board, because he might be that good. I don't know. And if he runs nowhere, that's fine too. But I want to ask you about another horse that I'm on the fence with, and he's another horse that is relatively short price at 10 to 1, and has gotten a lot of he's a talking horse, as they say, and that is Just a Touch, because he's only had 3 starts. Now, normally I would give any colt by Justify a stronger look than I would. I thought he ran his race in the Bluegrass. He was fairly close to a fast pace, but a pace that was not faster than I think he's going to see here. He had every chance. He opened up, and then Sierra Leone, who came by the parking lot and still ran by him like he was standing still. Yeah. And that was his first start around 2 turns. I thought he would run as well as he could. I liked him in the race. And I just thought he was found wanting in that race. And now he's going 1.25 miles. Second time around 2 turns. I mean, am I underestimating him? That's all I want to know from you, because I could still throw him in, but I need help here.
He feels more Preakness than Derby to me.
Mm-hmm.
He looks like he's a start away from being at this level to me. And one of those reasons is he's only had 1 2-turn race. Like Justify had the 3 starts. Mage had the 3 starts, but they both had 2 2-turn races coming into the Derby. The 1 Mile Gotham didn't help this horse out much. He got lost on the turn. He was kind of just going up and down on the turn and looked like he wasn't going to do anything. And then once they straightened out, he kind of, re-rallied a little bit with some tired horses in front of him, and the Gotham ended up second in that particular race. I think he needs more experience around 2 turns to this point. And the race at Keeneland, I mean, there's a class of handicapper out there who, no matter who the horse is, no matter what track you're talking about, no matter what the situation is, some horse who leads all the way around in fast fractions and runs second, they're going to tell you that they're the best horse in the race every time. There's a group of handicappers who just love a horse who runs a good second, running on the front end, and just gets nailed. Well, this horse and the 3rd place finisher and the 4th place finisher ran second all the way around the track. The only thing that happened in the Bluegrass was Top Connor, the leader, spit the bit. The 2, 3, 4 horses ran 2, 3, 4 the whole way around the track. It was a carousel, and Sierra Leone still got on the outside of the carousel, took all the kids' money, and then went around to win it. I mean, that's what happened in the Bluegrass. I mean, Top Connor's dropped out. Sierra Leone swooped by everybody, and everybody else maintained their position. Nobody else in the race closed an inch. 2, 3, 4 finished all the way around. So if you like just a touch in here off that 2nd place finish, then you better like Epic Ride, and you better like Dornoch too, because it's essentially the same race. They ran the same way around the track the last time. So to answer your question, I'm not on Just a Touch. He's on my list of horses I'm not going to be using on my tickets, again, because of the short price. Now, if you were going to tell me a horse like this is 25 to 1, Mage last year, 18, 19, 20 to 1 or something, maybe a consideration. But I think he's going to be far shorter than that. I think he is a threat, along with the Japanese horse, to potentially go off the 3rd choice at post time. I think Just a Touch is going to get bet a lot.
That's exactly was my thought process. But I read so many people, good handicappers, who like him, and I'm thinking, okay, I'm missing something, so I'm going to talk to Jeremy about that. And if he can come over to my side, then I at least I throw it in anyway. I'm on the right track. So thank you for that. I'm going to toss Just a Touch. I'm looking at his style. I'm not sure how he would win the race anyway, but anyway, so we'll throw him out, especially at 10 to 1. If you're 30 to 1, 20 to 1, whatever, you can talk.
Right, exactly. Everything is value-based in handicapping. I don't care what situation you're in. Now, you can make the same argument with Fierceness, and we'll talk about him in just a moment. If you're going to bet a 9 to 5, 2 to 1, he's not going to be 9 to 5. If you're going to bet 5 to 2, 3 to 1 in the Kentucky Derby and the win pool, bless your heart, there are easier $7 horses to hit 5 minutes after the Derby's over at any track in America. But if you're going to use that horse to play a pick 4, a pick 5, a superfecta, a trifecta, and exacta, now you could talk about maybe using shorter prices in the Kentucky Derby. But win pool prices, to me, I don't look, that'll be the biggest pool. Everybody bets the win pool. But for me, it's not the most valuable pool to be diving into on Kentucky Derby Day. There are situations in some of the other betting pools where you could take advantage of the horse you like best in the race. And that's where we go next for topic number 5. We've talked it up here over the last 37 minutes. We're time now to give our winners for Kentucky Derby 150. As of Tuesday here on the It's Official podcast, it's not going to change for me between now and Derby Day. Everybody and all things being equal between now and the end of the week. Knock on wood, everybody gets to the big dance on time. Jeff Siegel gets first shot here to tell us who's going to win Kentucky Derby 150.
I've been on Fierceness's back. I've been backing Fierceness, let's put it that way, ever since his Breeders' Cup Juvenile, which I thought was as good a juvenile as I'd seen in years, quite frankly. And then since he ran badly at the Holy Bull, I was puzzled. Then he comes back and wins the Florida Derby by a pole. And then he works in the morning like a colt who is so handy. I mean, he doesn't pull. I mean, I can't tell you how much impressed I am with his morning activity. He's not a runoff. He doesn't get rank. He's an easy ride. And he's just coasting here through the lane. And he's just looking spectacular. Gallop out. He's full of run. He's never even not taking a deep breath. He could not have been doing any better. So as the bandwagon goes, I'm a Fierceness all the way. I mean,
This
You
is
know, he might,
7/8 of a mile. I mean, he's
yeah,
going to
I
work to
mean,
the track kitchen.
right. I mean, it's just, I mean, something totally unforeseen is going to have to happen for him to get beat. And something totally unforeseen happened in the Holy Bowl. So it's not like it's completely implausible, but I
Sure.
don't think it's going to happen because he's got he's got 3 of the 5 wins. If the other 2 races didn't exist, he'd be even money. And he's
Right.
not, so there are too many people who don't trust him. I'm a trustworthy soul. I trust him.
We've been waiting 365 days for the Kentucky Derby. We analyze all these horses, wrote a couple 100,000 words this year in Countdown to the Crown, probably on this 3-year-old group. So when you get around to the first Saturday in May, you just can't take the favorite. Your mind tells you that you just can't do it. I keep track of what I do. I'm a stats guy. I'm a trends guy. I keep track of even what I do in the past. And over the last 20 years, I've picked the favorite to win the Kentucky Derby 5 times in 20 years. It doesn't happen very often.
Right.
They were Smarty Jones, Street Sense, Orb, California Chrome, and Tis the Law. 4 winners and a good runner-up. If you get to the first Saturday in May and you're convinced the favorite is the best horse in this crop, don't fish. Don't fish. I think this is the situation where this is the right favorite in the right situation on the right year. And it's time for Fierceness, I think, to deliver another star-studded performance like we've seen him do in the Florida Derby. And you'll see that in the graphic now for those of you watching. Those of you on our audio channels, we're getting the chance to see his 13.5 length victory in the Florida Derby. Was this an easy group? Absolutely. Did he have to warm himself up? Hardly. Not at all. But as we mentioned earlier, he's going to finish this race up with a just mind-blowing brisk late pace figure in this race. He flew home. Fierceness on his game to finish up the Florida Derby with a 113 late pace figure. Jeff, I just don't see this Son of City Light being beaten in this particular spot. But a bad trip would do it for anyone. Again, do you handicap a bad trip? We talk about the bad neighborhoods. I don't see anything particularly wrong with this post. If he was in a bad neighborhood, if he drew the 2 like Sierra Leone, I'd be probably looking to try to beat him. If he drew next to both of those Japanese horses, I might even be looking to try to think, oh boy, what's going to happen here? But we knew the pickle that he was in the Breeders' Cup Juvenile, surrounded by 5 of those grade 1 winners or grade 1 placed horses for all the big barns. I mean, it's not going to get any tougher in the Kentucky Derby than being surrounded by 5 horses with our 3 Bafferts, a Cox, and a Brown on the turn of the Breeders' Cup Juvenile, and he won that for fun. I just think Fierceness is the winner. We will handicap and gamble this race with him, in my assumption, as the top play in multi-race wagers and in the Superfecta. To me, the Superfecta is the major value in the Kentucky Derby. It's a $1 minimum wager. It's not for the faint of heart. It's not a dime, but that's how you get the boxcar payoffs. The Superfecta pays just so much better than the trifecta does on Kentucky Derby Day, that's the value to go after. And when you think about the number of possible combinations in the Superfecta, 20 times, 19 times, 18 times, 17, that's what pays you. This is what makes it unlike any other race, is the number of losing combinations pay the winners in parimutuel wagering. And you'll never get another race in America with that number of combinations in a Superfecta. It dwarfs any other race. That's why that's where I'm headed. And that's why I don't mind taking a horse who would be 5-2 as the favorite on the tote board. We're still looking to hit something that's 500 to 1, 1,000 to 1, 10,000 to 1 in the Superfecta, even using a horse that I think might be, the only play to put on top in the race.
Absolutely. I mean, like you said earlier, and nothing could be more true than this. You can always find a 5-2 shot, right?
Yeah.
You don't need it that in the Derby. But if you're looking to make a score, and I was a pick 6 player in the 80s, a serious pick 6 player, and I don't do that anymore because the $1 denomination kills any chance of having a major payoff. But here's a chance, maybe the best chance in the entire year, to make that that type of score. So
right.
But you got to take a stand somewhere.
Right.
I'm either going to be right about Fierceness or I'm going to be wrong. I'm
right.
hopefully going to be right. And the way to play it is the way we have discussed here in the last hour or so, where we're trying to find horses that you can hook up with what we think is the most logical winner of the race.
If we don't use Just a Touch, as we talked about, if we don't use Catching Freedom out of that Louisiana Derby that we talked about, if we don't use the Japanese horse Forever Young, now you're taking away maybe picks 2 or 3, 4, 5 on the tote board out of the superfecta. It's what do you do with Sierra Leone, right? If Sierra Leone's also part of the super, you're looking at something in the thousands to 1. You know, if Sierra Leone's not in there, you could be in the 10,000s to 1, even with the favorite winning in terms of the superfecta. So what is your threshold of trust in Sierra Leone from that inner post position and the way he's run? I still do trust him quite a bit. And the other thing about betting superfectas in the Kentucky Derby, I went back because I'm trying to figure out stylistically. You rarely get more than 2 horses, and a lot of times only 1 amongst the horses who are up near the front of the pack in the superfecta. You need 2 closers for sure amongst that group, many years a third. So if you're trying to figure out what to do with Fierceness in terms of a superfecta, look deep. You know, go deep, look for the horses towards the back of the pack that might be some big prices that can come along and get some of the underneath spots. But 2, maybe 3 of the closers in this race could be horses who end up getting a shot at it. Don't throw out the horses from the Arkansas Derby. They've kind of worked their way. Just Steel, Mystic Dan. Those are horses who might be a little bit further back that kind of finish up. I thought that race came home with Muth. The final fractions in the Arkansas Derby, we haven't talked about it much because that race, you know, with Muth not eligible to run in the Kentucky Derby and headed to the Preakness where he's the current favorite for the Preakness future wager. We haven't talked a lot about the Arkansas Derby, but that race came home pretty fast. And those horses, you know, coming out of there could be the kind that get a piece. Lucas at a price, McPeak at a price. How many times have we seen that over the years? Maybe those are the kind of horses that could juice up the superfecta if you're looking for some other horses underneath.
I'm so glad you brought up that Arkansas Derby because that reminds me of our far too early weather report, which I forgot to mention there. And the reason why I bring that up is because Mystic Dan, who was so impressive in the...
He's praying for rain.
He is praying for rain. He was not that bad. He was finished third at 41, but he wasn't bad. And if it rains, he might be a freak on the weather report. So as of this morning, which again means nothing, there was supposed to be some thunderstorms on Saturday. It looks like that may not happen. There may be some precipitation in the morning, but I don't think it's going to be enough to impact the track, the main track, which, you know, so I think we're going to be okay there. Now, they may have some thunderstorms on Oaks Day Friday, but I think the weather looks like at this stage, according to our far too early weather report, might be okay. And as far as Fierceness is concerned, he's won a maiden race in the mud at Saratoga by 11. I don't think it's going to bother him.
No,
he did run in the off track in the Champagne, but he got left at the gate that day. The off track didn't beat him. It was the terrible start. But Mystic Dan is the kind of horse you might want to elevate a little bit, just in case it's wet, because he might really be a mud freak.
I don't want to talk weather until like Friday night. I
won't talk until Tuesday
because it's going to twist me in like 9 other directions.
Saturday at 2, you know. I mean, no, really. I mean, it's because it could.
But you're right. If it rains, Mystic Dan is definitely one of the horses that you want to move up. And I think a lot of other handicappers will obviously, you know, key in on that. I don't think that's going to be his price will be reduced on a wet track. I think it will have a shorter price that people will pick up on that. Our 5 topics this week on It's Official lined up this way. The draw, we talked about who won, who lost, maybe the loser in the draw being Sierra Leone buried down on the inside. Dornoch from the rail actually may have been one of the winners. In terms of the pace, we think Dornoch goes to the front. We think the favorite Fierceness is right up into that mix. And look, it's a pretty fair pace in this year's Kentucky Derby. It might have gotten a little quicker with the post draw, the way that it turned out, quicker than we thought it was. Maybe a week or so ago. As for the long shots for Derby 150, Jeff went with his long shot in here, being the horse from California, Stronghold. I went with the long shot Resilience, winner of the Wood Memorial. As for our tosses, Jeff's not high on the Louisiana Derby, so he's getting rid of those, including the horse who's getting a lot of talk right now, Honor Marie. I went with the Japanese horses. Forever Young is now a toss for me in the Kentucky Derby after watching him train and the way he drew in the middle of the field, the kickback that he could be taking. And as for the winner, Jeff and I are in agreement. We do agree on this show probably more often than not, but that's because he's a smart guy. And smart guys agree with each other. So Jeff and I are both on Fierceness as our winner for Kentucky Derby 150. Those are the 5 topics this week on It's Official, and they are now official because Jeff Siegel and I said so. That's the way we play the game here on the podcast. We are very happy that you joined us for the special Kentucky Derby preview part 2 edition of the It's Official podcast. Those of you watching within the framework of the first Kentucky Derby wager guide, be sure to check out all the other handicappers in the guide. We'll have updates on the guide throughout the course of the week. We've got one bonus topic for you, though, before we head out here. We want to give you 5 in 5. 5 horsemen involved in this year's Kentucky Derby over the next 5 minutes. Jenny Reese, Hall of Fame correspondent for the Kentucky HBPA, one of the greatest turf riders of all time, a dear friend and a colleague. She has been on the backstretch at Churchill Downs doing interviews with the horsemen leading up to the Derby. We put together some of the best stuff for that so you can learn a bit more. You're going to hear over the next 5 minutes from Tyler Gaffleone, the jockey, of course, of Sierra Leone, Danny Gargan, the trainer of Dornoch and Society Man, Steve Asmussen, who's got blinkers going on, Track Phantom, Michael McCarthy, why are they running endlessly, the turf and synthetic horse in the Derby? He'll give you some interesting answers there. And then Mike Rapoli, the bodacious and loud owner of Fierceness, tells you why being quiet around Fierceness seems to be the way to go. First up is Tyler Gaffleone, and I want to set this up by telling you, Tyler Gaffleone last week, he did not work Sierra Leone. He worked Chad Brown's other horse, Domestic Product, in company with Sierra Leone. He wanted to get a better look at his mount for the Derby from the opponent's point of view. Here's what he found out, and thanks to Jenny Reese from the Kentucky HBPA for these interviews. We'll get those rolling right now.
I definitely like feeling the pressure outside of him. Every time I got up closer to him, you can see he stick his head out a little bit more. So it definitely helps having a little encouragement on the outside. I love everything about him. You know, last time he was so impressive in the Risen Star that day, making up all that ground, slow pace, sloppy track, overcame a lot. But I was even more impressed with him last time. You know, with that little bit of a fit he threw behind the gate, for him to compose himself and get his mind back into running and put on the performance that he did. I thought it was incredible. It just shows the mind frame that he has and the talent that he has.
Any concerns with the gate here, with the big crowd?
Not so much. They got a great crew here. Chad's done plenty of work with them. Everybody's kind of aware of the situation, so they'll have them well prepared. That's the thing. After you get a horse like this, it's just so exciting. Everything leading up to it. As much as you want it to come right now, you still got to enjoy the process and everything coming with it. So we're living the dream right now. Really looking forward to next Saturday.
But it does make shipping around a lot harder because, you know, putting them on the van and going, 19 hours from one place to the other is a lot harder than jumping on the plane and getting there an hour and a half later. But, that's everybody's in the same ballpark as we were. Maybe I should have left sooner and breezed once at Kingland. But you have to go back and can't relive it. You can just have to go forward and not do it again. So we came over here right after the race, trained here, and he seems to get a hold of this track. Like I said, they just went a little faster than we wanted, but the track's playing super fast. So, it is what it is.
Is this race kind of the ultimate goal for you?
Well, I think it is for every horse trainer. I mean, I'd like to win the Oaks because my father won it, but it's the Derby. It's every trainer's ultimate goal, I think.
I neglected to ask you last week about the blinkers. Because you always have a reason that you do something.
The Louisiana Derby, he definitely lost concentration coming into the stretch and took kind of a misstep or something. It probably had more to do with the time of day the race ran, and it was getting pretty dark and the lights were on, and it just I think made whatever he may or thought he saw or did see. But no matter what, the Derby's not something that he can lose his focus on. But I feel really good about Track Phantom as far as he's met several of these horses, competed well against them, and he's capable of moving forward off his last race. Well, I still want him to jump well from the gates, and he's done that in the past. I love our draw. 12 gives Joel plenty of options, but hopefully, with that being said, hopefully jumps well from the gates, and then he goes from there. But it is to keep his focus if he does find himself on the lead or in that, just to avoid what happened with him last time. I think that for anybody to run optimum, they're going to have to be consistent. They're not going to be able to take any deviations during the journey. So I think that what his strength is what efficient mover he is, how well he covers ground, a nice rhythmic stride. And what that did was take him out of it. And then after that point, he was unable to re-accelerate.
Certainly, I was very bullish on running the horse in the American turf. He showed up at Churchill Downs. He's trained wonderfully since he's gotten here. His last work here was very, very good. Mr. Ammerman asked if I would keep all of our options open. Certainly was happy to oblige. We spoke about it at length, and we decided the Kentucky Derby was, something that we just couldn't pass up as well as the horse was doing here. Mr. Ammerman owns the sire, Oscar Performance, owns the mare. So there's a rich vein there, and there's one Kentucky Derby. Horse is training very well. He's won 5 races. The only blemish on his card is a defeat in the Breeders' Cup Juvenile Turf. But I think if the horse handles the dirt here on Saturday, I think he'll be just fine.
You love the idea of the 1.25 miles. It's just a surface. It's
if any horse is going to get 1.25 miles on Saturday, it'll be him. Obviously the dirt is the unknown, but we're going to go ahead and we'll find out here on Saturday. We've got a horse who mentally is very good. So that's another one of the reasons why I'm kind of approaching this with the attitude that, he's exceeded our expectations so far. Maybe he'll do it again.
Listen, the horse is just he's just a different kind. He does everything so easy, so calm, so cool. He's collective. Todd was growing up was a big San Antonio fan, and he's like Tim Duncan, chill, relaxed, collective. The only time he's really good is when he works and he runs. And other than that, you wouldn't pick him out, And it's so funny. It's like I've been through this a lot. A horse like this calms you down, calms me down. I mean, he just gets it, man. He does everything so right.
We'll see if he does it right on Saturday. Fierceness, the 5-2 morning line favorite from 17. The Saddle Towel right now from post 16, following the scratch today of the 9 Encino. Jeff Siegel, give you the final word on this It's Official podcast before you and I will reconvene this Thursday for our typical Friday podcast. We usually do our first call podcast on Friday, but since it's Oaks Day, we'll get in advance of that. So you and I will rejoin on Thursday. Give you a chance to say goodnight to everybody.
Well, I will say this. I think Michael McCarthy made the right choice, even though I don't think Endlessly is going to have a lot of impact in the Derby. I'd like to see it happen. Mm-hmm. But I think he made the right choice because in the American Turf this year, there's a horse in that race that Endlessly could not possibly beat. But I'm not going to tell you who it is. You're going to have to check out my full card analysis for the Derby and for the Oaks Day. So 2 full card analysis for you. We'll have the Oaks up card a couple of days early on Wednesday for members of ExpressBet, and then the Derby full card analysis, all 14 races with wagering strategies. We'll upload that for Thursday, so you get a couple of days of head start. And I can tell you right up to that, I haven't completed my Oaks handicapping yet, but I've done the full card for the Kentucky Derby card, and I can tell you that in all my years, I do not remember a better wagering card than Saturday. If I'm right. Now, if I'm wrong, it's going to be a rotten card. But I love a bunch of rare horses and a bunch of races. So, again, it's all free. Check it out. ExpressBet for members of ExpressBet. The Derby card will be up on Thursday.
In the old days, we would call that a cliffhanger. Today, it's called clickbait. Jeff Siegel saying you have got to click on his blog coming up this weekend. I
want to keep doing this job. I need all the clicks I can get.
I'm hitting refresh over and over, waiting for that to come up. If you are wanting more information on the Kentucky Oaks, be sure to check out the first Kentucky Derby Wager Guide, where Millie Ball has you covered. She's nailed the Oaks winner here the last year or 2, I think, straight. She's looking for another one. Get Millie's updated analysis this week on the first Kentucky Derby wager guide. She's got our Oaks coverage for you in the guide. That's a wrap, everybody. Jeff and I will be back on Thursday again for a special edition Kentucky Derby undercard handicapping and some final thoughts on Derby 150 and our Oaks thoughts coming up in that Thursday podcast called First Call. Thanks for watching. Be sure to hit like, share this with your friends, help build up our audience. We're around more than just the Kentucky Derby. Some other podcasts show up for the big event. We're with you as racing fans year round. We'll talk to you on Thursday. Good luck in the Derby.